Oke, kembali lagi bersamaku dan kali ini kita pengen reaction ya. Ini kita reaction, tapi ini bukan live ya. Sayang banget ini bukan live ya.
Mention a Nissan GTR in any car conversation and somebody is going to have an opinion. And love or hate, you'll generally find some measure of respect. Mention a Nissan GTR in any car conversation and somebody is going to have an opinion. And love or hate, you'll generally find some measure of respect. It's a badge that means something to car people because they are flipping brilliant. Welcome then to the Nissan Hyperforce, which is either the next Japanese Batmobile or the shape of things to come in the GTR pantheon. Now Nissan reckons that the Hyperforce is what an eco-conscious Hyper EV might look like sometime in the future, but they also think that it's going to be very daily usable. So in my mind it's kind of a Greenpeace GTR concept that has some hints as to what a real-life next-gen GTR might look like. Possibly-ish. So, the headlines for the Hyperforce are that it has a full electric drivetrain with dual motors and a next-generation performance version of Nissan's e-Force four-wheel drive. It's also got a solid-state battery pushing out 1,000 kilowatts of power. Now, 1,000 kilowatts is about 1,341 brake horsepower in old money, which should give you the usual sub-3 second 0 to 62 times and mad in-gear acceleration, but that's all so far so electric, so space age. That claim for a solid-state battery is interesting because they have a higher energy density than traditional lithium-ion, are safer, easier to recycle, last longer, charge faster, and generally don't have to be the same shape or size that we're used to, opening up a whole ream of possibilities from packaging to weight. But they're expensive, and nobody has really quite cracked the formula for big EV-sized ones. So while the world is confident they're coming, they ain't here yet. But this is a concept car, so the company could have said it was powered by unicorn tears and cold fusion, and nobody could have told them any different. What's important about this thing is how it looks, and it looks about as angry as it's possible to get without compulsory therapy. It's made up virtually entirely of very sexy angles. You will notice, however, that there is a decent chunk of R35 GTR kind of floating up through this thing, especially around this window line, C-pillar, the head and the tail lights. There are ideas here, even though the execution is kind of trying to make you look the other way. Stuff like dual-level diffusers and wings front and back, they make sense, as do the active aerodynamic elements. The front dive planes, front valance and rear wing, they've all got movable parts depending on the job at hand. All developed with the help of the Nismo Motorsport arm, which means it's actually based in reality. Forged carbon aero wheels, they could be a definite possibility, though I would be avoiding curbs like the plague. And there's a plasma actuator, which suppresses air detachment to maximise grip and minimise inner wheel lift during cornering. It sounds like science fiction, it's actually science fact. But while there's lots of real stuff kind of hiding behind the greatest showman aesthetic, it's the inside that is properly bonkers, because it's a mix of fast jet cockpit and Berlin nightclub. There are lots of lights, obviously, and they change colour depending on which of the two modes you're in. So if you're in R mode, which stands for racing, everything is very red and quite aggressive, and these satellite screens either side of this yoke steering wheel come forward and present you with all the relevant information you might need for when you're going really fast. So things like tyre temperature, rotor temperature, torque vectoring, traction control, that kind of stuff. And then, once you're off the racetrack, you can go into GT mode, which is Grand Touring, obviously. Then everything turns very blue and relaxed. And then it has things like climate control, audio, satellite navigation, things you'll need on a road. Although I have to say, even when you're in GT mode, these full kind of carbon fibre sun loungers and the 4-point harnesses aren't actually that comfortable. And there's a twist. The Hyperforce also has a special set of virtual reality goggles that mean you can use the car as a sim when parked. Or you can go augmented reality and use skeleton visors when you're actually on a real racetrack to do stuff like race ghost versions of other people or just try and beat your own previous time. So that's all well and good, but there's a reason why the GTR nameplate is iconic. First, it's got history. Ever since the PGC-10 Skyline GTR was launched way back in 1969, the GTR nameplate has had that kind of giant killing attitude for a relatively affordable price. Second, it's been proven in motorsport, from touring cars to endurance racing, the GTR has consumed more titles than a Labrador at a dog biscuit buffet. They called it Godzilla for a reason, because it was a monster from Japan. Third, it's got tech. From the late 80s and the R32, the GTR got a Taser ETS all-wheel drive. It's got twin turbos, four-wheel steering, race-realistic engines and Nismo tweakery. It's a car built for tuning, for personalisation, for more. And fourth, it's been immortalised in popular culture, both in Japan and abroad. From computer games to cameos in film, the GTR has become a legend in its own production run. I once drove the Ital-designed GTR 50 down the US East Coast, and it caused proper commotion because fans thought it was the new GTR. So is this the next GTR? Yes, and no. This is basically Nissan's idea of what a hyper EV might look like sometime in the future, probably about 2030. But it does have some elements of real life. It strongly suggests that the next GTR might have a big bit of EV in it and probably some active aero, but it won't actually look like this. Well, not entirely anyway. Thing is, would it be a problem if it did? Let us know in the comments.
Aduh. Ada sabarlah. Tuh. Oke. Wah, lewatin weh. Ah, yalah. Oke, udah nih. Tapi terpaksa kita gue pakai kamera ya.
We're here at Mazda's top-level design studio in Hiroshima in Japan to take a look at a new concept car called the... We're here at Mazda's top-level design studio in Hiroshima in Japan to take a look at a new concept car called the iconic SP, and it looks a bit like that. We're here at Mazda's top-level design studio in Hiroshima in Japan to take a look at a new concept car called the iconic SP, and it looks a bit like that. Pretty, isn't it? And as far as concept cars go, the iconic SP looks kind of tantalisingly close to being real. It's not made of titanium razor blades or hydroform from recycled dolphins anyway. It's just a classic two-seat sports car with some really rather excellent lines. This is the best kind of concept, the one that doesn't take very much decoding. Mazda launched this car along with an updated MX-5, and everyone sort of assumed that it was a next-gen roadster. And although there's definitely a kind of greatest hits of Mazda's styling going on, and that's not a bad thing, the iconic SP is either a super slinky MX-5 alike, or a nod to the RX-7. So is it this? Greatest hits of Mazda's styling going on, and that's not a bad thing, The iconic SP is either a super slinky MX-5 alike or a nod to the RX-7. So is it this? Or this? At first, when I saw the pictures, I was thinking MX-5, but now that I'm stood next to it, I'm thinking it's the RX-7, mainly because it's longer, lower and wider and more powerful than any MX-5 you can think of. Oh yeah, and it's got a rotary engine. Yes, it's not that kind of rotary, because all is not as it seems. There's definitely a rotary engine in there, but it's a two-rotor system that acts as a generator for a fully EV drivetrain. So this is essentially an electric car with an ICE engine to give it power-ups. An ICE engine that Mazda says can run on a variety of sustainable fuels. As ever with most things with batteries and motors, it'll be pretty powerful but slightly heavier than you expect. Power is quoted at 365 brake horsepower, weight at 1,450 kilograms. So it'll be fast but not silly. But that kind of power plant is also scalable, so you can upsize it for more powerful cars by adding more powerful motors and sizing up the generator engine. The rotary motor sits in the front for perfect 50-50 weight distribution, and with that kind of power output, it probably doesn't need dual motors, so there'll be a single unit packaged in the rear. And that's all aimed at what Mazda calls excellent driving performance and fun to driveness. This is all good news. But there is an addition to the electric package, because this car has vehicle-to-load capability, so you can use it as a mobile battery when you go camping, or indeed it could run your house in the event of a power outage. Oops. I just like the way it sits. It's not concept car challenging. I don't have to get used to it or hear the story behind it before it makes sense. It just looks good. Classic proportions, a cracking colour, simple details. There are lovely, wide, crisp front wings that stretch over aero reels with carbon-looking inserts, a beautiful shape to the windows here, and then again this wave of rear arch that flows back into a very neat rear. But even there, again, we get a twist on the Mazda theme of twin round rear lights, and these kind of infinity symbol shapes. Even the Venturi down there is super simple. And simple is a theme that continues on the inside. Just have a look at how pared back that interior is. Compared to some of the digital theme parks that we're used to, this is back to basics in a big way. It's really simple. Basically, there's a small digital driver's display and a touchscreen in the middle, then this small steering wheel with some paddles behind it. Now, they could either be for, I don't know, a fake gearbox or for brake regeneration. And then on the centre console, you've got some sliders that pick your gear. That's the gearbox. Everything is just really kind of simple and neat. I have also noticed that there appears to be blue corduroy on the seats, which means that corduroy is definitely making a comeback. Yes. Of course, if you dig a little bit deeper, everything is sustainable and recycled, so there's biomaterial here and there and flax-derived this and that. But actually, what stands out is the simplicity. And to find out a little bit more about why the iconic SP looks the way it does, we decided to ask the fella that designed it, Masashi Nakayama.
7が一番の、インスピレーションですから RX7 もデザインドバイロータリーっていう言葉があるんですよね。ロータリーエンジンでなければできない車だと。ですからこの車も RX7 にの似たようなモチーフがたくさんあると思うんですけども、それはこの車を見た人が RX7 を思い出してほしいと思って、そういうモチーフを入れてます。先ほども言ったようにもう脳の奥のところで感じてほしいと思ってます。それはもう理屈じゃないですよね。で一番分かりやすいのは子供が見た時に一番ときめく形、ときめくデザインってあると思うんですけども、それは例えばミニカーなんです。ミニカーを子供を見る時には普通車を上から見ると思うんですけど、でそのミニカーを上から見てときめく形、そんな車を、好きになると思うんです。でこの車は上から見るともうこんなものすごいこういう形をしていて、それがこれからのマツダのデザインの少しヒントになっていると思ってもらえればいいと思います。でこれに、ある人に聞かれたんです。なぜライトが上がるんだと。でこう答えたんですけど、上げた方がいいじゃないですか、かっ っこいいじゃないですか。そこに理屈はいりませんという答えをしたんですけども、そういう理屈ではないデザインをまずはしていくと、もう本当に心に響くデザインをしていく、そういうのを持っていただければいいと思います。これをまあそうですね、この車が次のプロジェクトにしたいと思いますね。そのぐらいにこの車を早く出した。
It's not what Mazda has included here, but what it's left out that's made this car stand out weirdly. The company kind of had to have a little bit of a shake-up and produce something genuinely exciting again to get itself going. And I think the iconic SP is exactly that car, even with its really strange rotary electric drivetrain. But if you think that does sound weird, don't forget it already exists in the MX-30 REV. This is just that on steroids.
It's funny, but during the EV revolution, quite a few car company bosses are addressing the worry that cars are starting to become transport solutions rather than passionate items. Masahiro Moro, president and CEO of the Mazda Motor Corporation, said, "At Mazda, we are all determined and committed to delivering vehicles that bring joy and happiness to all, because we have an unwavering belief that a great car can enrich its driver's and owner's life. The iconic SP is a dream, but a dream we'll work hard to launch."
And I think he's right, but you do have to get people to actually want the cars in the first place, and good cars only become great when you get form and function together in one package. So tell us what you think. Is the iconic SP son of RX-7 or next-gen MX-5? And is it as pretty as I actually think it is?
Oke, sepertinya besok kita lanjut part 2 atau mau sampai habis nih? Atau gimana? Gue baru ingat ini kan bukan live. Oke, sampai sini dulu ya.